right. Thank you. We'll see you soon. Well, speaking of, with Thanksgiving approaching, many of us are kind of bracing for potential drama at the dinner table, especially after this election season. Author and life coach Mike Robbins joining us now to share tips on how to navigate challenging conversations and really keep the focus on gratitude and connection during the holiday season. Hi, Mike. Good morning. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Okay, so I know many families are anticipating tension at the dinner table. So what do you have as far as advice or any tips to sort of maintain the peace?
Well, first, I mean, it is a challenging time for a lot of people, and I think people tend to be a bit anxious going home for Thanksgiving or having family around, and especially this year. So I think the first thing we got to do is really have a plan going in and, set some boundaries. Like, what are we willing to talk about? What are we not willing to talk about? And that's the first step, I think, in the process.
Okay, so if you are setting boundaries, though, do you have these conversations before your family comes over for Thanksgiving? I know my husband and I always talk about this, these topics in advance, like, okay, when so-and-so starts doing this, what's our game plan? Is that, really how other people do it? And what if you don't have a chance to chat beforehand?
I mean, it depends. Everyone's situation is a little bit different, but I think having those conversations beforehand, like, with our own people, our own spouses and children, but also potentially with the host and the people we're going to be with. I think the second thing, Gianna, we can do is really assume positive intent and search for common ground. Like, we got to be real. It's not about sitting on our hands and pretending like we don't have thoughts and feelings and opinions. But I think sometimes if we go in looking for a fight, we're probably going to find one, especially this year.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the most important mindset shift we should do or have that we can make going into this Thanksgiving holiday, really to ensure we have a peaceful and meaningful gathering with friends and family?
Well, I think it's important to remember that self-righteousness leads to defensiveness and vulnerability leads to empathy. So the more willing we can be to remove our self-righteousness and bring some vulnerability with us, if you will. And one of the ways to access vulnerability and connection is to be curious and be compassionate. Again, we don't have to agree with our Uncle Joe, or we don't have to think that some people's, opinions or votes are okay with us necessarily. But I think there is a lot of common ground. And one of the things that I noticed, John, as I travel around the country, regardless of where people find themselves on the political, spectrum, most people are uncomfortable and really concerned about the divisiveness, especially the way it's impacting us personally and our families. So I think if we can model that and try to bring some sense of peace and compassion as we sit around the Thanksgiving table, that's important. And then it's also important to remember that really what this holiday is about appreciation and gratitude. And sometimes that's easier said than done. But I think thinking about that and talking about that actually makes a big difference, especially this year.
Great information, Mike. And, you're right. It's taking a moment to really listen and understand where another person is coming from. But if it gets a little crazy, I say, let's talk about the weather or sports. We can leave it at that. You have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate all that info.
Thanks for having me. Happy Thanksgiving.